Whew. Finally. You done? Oh, yeah, sorry. Hey, Flame.
Hey, asshole.
Is that necessary?
I don't know. Is it necessary to play BM?
Yeah, I mean, of course. It's a great spec, man. It has mobility. It's a great barrier of entry for new people getting into range.
Stop. Does it have talents, though?
Yeah, of course.
Do you talk about covenants, conduits, legendaries, rotations, and such?
Well, we do that for all of our videos, man. Of course, yeah.
And more?
And more.
Then why bring me here?
The fuck? You called me.
Interesting. So is this the kind of relationship you have with Marcelian?
We're friends. We work together. We have the same objectives, and we share the same
bed.
No, you sick fuck. He's married. I have a girlfriend.
And
I think it's inappropriate for you to suggest.
Do you think you are a cunt because you play BM, or are you playing BM because you are a cunt?
I main survival, dude. I play BM for the guides.
So you don't deny you are a cunt.
I think I have everything I need. Wait, what? Wait, everything for what? Everything for what? Speaking of everything and segues, subscribe and like and enable those notifications because that does help the channel out, and we would really appreciate it if you like our content and you want to see more of it, because we do different types of stuff. And if you want to see everything that we do but you're not subscribed and had those bell thingies clicked, you probably won't get the notification because YouTube. But let's get on with the video. Starting with the first row, because that's what Papa taught me, we have Animal Companion. This baby is good for all content, raid, and dungeons alike. This essentially lets you have a second pet out, basically the first one in your stable list, to mimic your main pet's kill command and deal generally 35% reduced damage. Nothing much to say here, it's pretty much passive, set and forget. Moving down the row, the second talent tier will have Scent of Blood. Once again, best for all content. This makes it so when popping Bestial Wrath you have 2 free charges of Barb Shot refunded. This also means you want to spend all of them prior to Bestial Wrath. And this also means that you want to include a cooldown reduction in your calculations, aka 12 seconds per available barbed shot, meaning that the last barbed shot charge you can shoot should reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath, just so you can cast it as it comes off cooldown the next global without wasting too many seconds of the potential cooldown reduction. Third row goes into the utility side of things. Well, survivability rather. Natural Mending is a solid choice for raids and Mythic Plus dungeons. It helps you get exhilaration way more often, providing you with a general sustain. It can save your butt or help your healers keep you up for longer periods of time. Camouflage will have some value in dungeons when there is a reason to skip packs. This will also have a lot to do with your tank and if their route will require skips. Having camo will save up on you not only not needing an invis pot, but factoring out the downside of having all potions share the same 5-minute cooldown, which if you are using DPS potions, you run the risk of them conflicting their cooldown with the invisibility potions one. On the next row, take Thrill of the Hunt. This will activate with your barb shot casts and stack in a similar manner with similar durations. Crit is a major stat for the spec, and at the end of the day, this baby gives you the most damage output. Mastering the uptime of Frenzy will indirectly net you the most game from this talent as well. Fifth talent row is yet another utility row. On these rows, you usually want to pick the option you know you will be exploiting to the max. Otherwise, you are left at a deficit. Born to be Wild is a generic option that works for both raids and dungeons. This reduces the cooldown of your turtle and cheetah by 20%. If you are in a situation where you need to cast these as soon as they are available and the 20% cooldown reduction makes them align with the mechanic you want to do or a strategy you want to pull off, take it. One example is the last boss in Tazavesh hard mode, where you can absorb the first and last 2 charges of Collapsing Star, but if your group's damage is a little bit too high, the third one comes a bit too quick for your turtle to cool off. This is very specific, but in this scenario you can save your tank and healer some major stress by having a faster turtle. Post haste is a solid choice in raids. There are bosses where after you disengage, you still need to move to a specific point, and obviously a burst of speed when doing so is much appreciated and can save you time and damage taken if you need to avoid stuff. In dungeons, you can still make use of it, but probably the better option to take is Binding Shot. There are numerous scenarios where your tank would like to kite to drop certain debuff stacks, and this, together with similar effects, make you a big asset to your group. Obviously, stuff like Sanguine makes it counterproductive, but you will more often than not find it useful, and if not, the option to let your tank kite can open doors to other opportunities. Row 6 is Stomp. It's just Stomp. Just Stomp. It's fine. What? Barrage is cool and amazing? Nah, bruv. Your pet will fart in AoE when you barb shot your target. What? Stampede is the quintessential beast mastery fantasy? Nah, not enough damage, mate. Stomp. Stomp is the winner. And lastly, whoa, what is this? All options viable? Well, Aspect of the Beast is still the solid go-to for most content. Want the easy way out? PM. Then take Aspect. It's solid, a passive, and as with all good beast mastery passives, it changes 0 things about your rotation. Killer Cobra will work the best in pure single target scenario, in which case you want it in raids on bosses like Terragru, Guardian, Sylvanas and such. Bloodshed is in a similar boat. It will perform the best in single target scenarios. While Bloodshed is another cooldown and consequently a button to press, Killer Cobra alters your rotation slightly. Either way, outside dungeons, which see Aspect be the best, in raids all 3 can be good. The best way to know which is better for your hunter, cause gear and legendaries matter, sim it or test it yourself. There are 2 kinds of people, those who sim and those who don't. Ideally, in today's day and age, if you are curious about the best anything to equip, then you have to sim your character for the absolute best result. On paper. Yes, simming is not 100% accurate for all content, since not all content is the same and you play differently each time. But it does help in understanding what should work for your character. Alternatively, to keep it simple, eye level is usually the best metric to choose gear by, with the exception of necks, rings, and sometimes trinkets, since they either don't have agility, your main stat that determines part of the strength of the eye level, or simply have a unique powerful effect that circumvents the raw power of stats. Eye level means agility, sure, but it also means a larger pool of secondary stats, which are all good in various degrees of quantity. After that, you really want critical strike. Crit, as mentioned before, is in part self-explanatory. Your hits have a chance to deal double the damage. Crit also works towards your Wild Call passive that resets the cooldown of your barb shot when your auto attacks crit with a 20% chance to activate. This works towards getting you a higher uptime on Frenzy and even more cooldown reduction for Bestial Wrath. After Critical Strike, you will want Haste, versatility with Mastery at the very bottom. The differences between the strength of each stat is not large, and the value they will have for you will change. They will most likely change with the gear you will be getting. With the same arguments in mind, you can approach consumables like enchants and gems. Although simming is still the best, chances are some will consistently be better anyway. As such, you can start with either the infragreen reflex sight or the optical target embiggener for your weapon. Usually, with lower eye level per total, main stat proccing effects will be valued more, but once you get enough gear, hence enough agility, secondary stats can be preferred over main stats. Moving to your chest piece, Eternal Skirmish as an enchant will perform the best in single target scenarios, while Eternal stats will work the best in AoE. It mostly depends on the type of content you do, which if you push it to the limit, you might also want a heavy Desolate Armor kit for the additional stamina. Your boots will get Eternal Agility as the only viable option, while for your cloak we recommend Fortified Avoidance. Avoidance as a stat will give you a % chance to avoid AoE attacks. Since raids and dungeons have trickles of damage that you take almost constantly, the value of this enchant is almost always exploited. As for the more interchangeable options, the Tenet of Critical Strike enchant will go perfectly on your rings, while the Deadly Jewel Cluster Gem will be your socket of choice. For your alchemical consumables, always have a Spectral Flask of Power on. It's just manners. You can use the Potion of Phantom Fire for single target scenarios, while the Potion of Spectral Agility will perform better overall in AoE encounters. And lastly, put Shadow Core Oil on your weapon, which will also work better with the Phantom Fire Potion. And in closing, food! The best thing to be invented since air. Feasts will always work the best if available for you, or you are filthy rich, filthy bastard. If not, spine fin souffle and fries will be a good alternative that will help you get the stats you need for the kill. The talk of covenants is a contentious one. First of all, what are you after? Best single target damage? And by single target I mean that if an ad pops out, your build will be behind something that would have benefited more targets. Or maybe you want to do various types of content. Either way, all covenants will offer a lot of value with a few percentages of output difference between each other. Single target at least, since that's the metric that can be reliably measured. For the best mathematical edge in raids, in single target you can go with Venthyr. Flayed Shot by design is a single target ability which is self-evident, and by going with Nadia and Dauntless Duelist will have the best single target build to use in game. The key factor being Dauntless Duelist, which you will put on the boss but will bring zero value once you have to kill ads. Although Venthyr will be the most damage to one target, we don't recommend it to everyone. In dungeons it will start to fall behind way more since you have even more AoE there present. Still, if taking down Sylvanas or if you are put on a boss duty by your raid leader, Venthyr will rock the house. You will still play Nadia in dungeons as well for optimal output. If you played Hunter 9.0 and have been looking to optimize, you are probably already Night Fae. Night Fae is one of the better ones overall. With Nia in raids and Nia's tools Burrs, you will have an optimal single target build with a 2-minute burst damage profile when you activate Wild Spirits. It's not the best in raids, but not too far off either. In Mythic Plus, you will see the Covenant at its finest. Getting Khorane with First Strike will give you the most amount of burst you can have from a Covenant. It's solid, and when we talk about differences, they are incredibly small to the point where it won't matter unless you want to be in the 1%. And even then, it's debatable. For the most amount of versatility and ease of access, we recommend Night Fae as of this recording. Things can change in the future. And speaking of change, Kyrian has come from behind with a big surprise. First of all, I personally prefer it over Night Fae, simply because of Resonating Arrow, which I wasn't sure I was going to be a fan of. In raids, Kyrian outperforms Night Fae by a smidge, but a smidge still behind Venthyr. However, in AoE it's just behind Night Fae, making this one a more balanced option overall since it takes Venthyr in AoE, so it's kind of like middle ground for both. You will lose the burst potential of Night Fae, which in a lot of situations can be preferred over anything else, but will gain a more smooth damage output. Resonating Arrow has a 1-minute cooldown, giving you a higher frequency of burst windows but smaller still than Wild Spirits. In dungeons, it will probably be up for every important pack and boss, which is something Wild Spirits cannot do. For raiding, we recommend Clea as of now. Valiant Strikes and Pointed Courage work really well with your proclivity towards crit as a stat, especially if you can keep the latter on stacked up to 3 by being near your allies. Pelagos seems to be the best for Mythic Plus right now, especially since it's fairly easy to get his good shit and have 3 potency slots faster than most soulbinds. The best potency conduits start with your Covenant specific option: Enfeebled Mark if you're a Kyrian, Spirit Attunement if you're a Fairy, and Empowered Release for the Edgelords, with the other slots being filled by one with the Beast and Bloodletting. In the Endurance slot, start with Marksman's Advantage, which works the best when you want defensives the most, but keep your Hunter's Mark on so that, the boss won't kill you. Then Resilience of the Hunter and Condensed Animasphere can be good alternatives. And lastly, in the Finesse slots, use Reversal of Fortune and Cheetah's Vigor if you need a second Finesse conduit. To equip trinkets, you are probably better off simming or testing or even checking websites like bloodmallet.com and herodamage.com. A few noteworthy ones are the Inscrutable Quantum Device, provided you can play around its different procs and get a weak aura, the Overcharged Anima Battery, a solid haste buff, or Shadow Grasp Totem, which is not a stat buff but more of a raw damage output option. Some of the raid ones are good as well, although some with a disclaimer. Again, some of the ones that seem to sim the best are Salvage Fusion Amplifier and Relic of the Frozen Wastes. With the new system, yay, of shards in 9.1, there are a few things you can tweak. There are 3 types of shards: Blood, Unholy, and Frost, each with a bonus if you equip 3 of their respective type. Chaos Bane is for Unholy, and ideally the best. Blood Link is for Blood shards, and Winds of Winter for Frost respectively. With this in mind, there are 3 main shards to get: Beck for Blood, Diz for Unholy, and Core for Frost, with the other 2 slots being filled by the type of which bonus you want to get. And keep in mind, the actual bonus, the 3 set bonus, is only available in the raid and in the MON, so not in dungeons. But the gems themselves, the shards themselves, will work in dungeons. With the addition of the Covenant legendaries, Beastmaster hunters have options now. The best one to get if you decide to go Venthyr is Pouch of Razor Fragment. This changes your Flayed Shot to have an AoE component which works for every raid boss that's not pure single target, although the bleed seems to apply to your primary target as well. If you go Night Fae, Fragments of the Elder Antlers will be your best bet. This kind of does the opposite of the Venthyr legendary, as in it makes Wild Spirits proc more if there are 4 fewer targets hit, essentially increasing your single target performance in a world where Night Fae had no AoE issues. Alternatively, Rylak Stalker's Piercing Fangs, however boring, is still good overall, regardless of Covenant and content. And if not, Soulforge Embers can be even better if you're cool enough to fit in 2 flares in every tar trap. All in all, options are aplenty this time around. Yay BM! And of course, we cannot talk about gear without mentioning the elephant in the room in 9.1. Sylvanas will drop 2 of your best items in the game. The Dark Ranger's Quiver is a cloak with a special effect just for hunters, and it's actually a quiver when you equip it, as a cosmetic. Why not sooner, Blizz? Why? And let's move on to the rotation. You almost lost it, huh? Legendary bow, bitches! Hell yeah! Sylvanas now drops her bow, Rashalare Death's Whisper, with yet another awesome effect just for mages. Seriously? But jokes aside, these 2 are without a doubt your bis in each respective gear slot, and may be worth doing the raid over even if you plan on being a Mythic Plus pusher mainly. To open in all scenarios, start with Aspect of the Wild and Bloodshed if talented. Pop your Covenant ability, cast Barb Shot twice, then Bestial Wrath, then Barb Shot again, and proceed to the normal rotation. In terms of raw priority, depending on your build, things can change, so let's see if we can showcase it here properly. Aspect of the Wild is first on the list and should be cast on cooldown and together with your DPS potion ideally. Use Barb Shot to refresh Frenzy just before it expires, cast Tar Trap if not already down, and then Flare as it becomes available. You ideally want to fit 2 flares in every Tar Trap for the Soulforge Embers legendary. If you are not using it, then skip this step. Cast Bloodshed on cooldown if talented. Use your Covenant ability here, Wild Spirits, Resonating Arrow, and Flayed Shot. Use Kill Shot on cooldown as it becomes available. Use Barb Shot next to prevent it from capping, or if Bestial Wrath has less than 13 seconds remaining, so you can easily use it as well and get the 2 free Barb Shot charges. Cast Bestial Wrath next on the priority list. If Wild Spirits has 15 or fewer seconds left before it becomes available, then save Bestial Wrath to combo the 2. Similarly with Resonating Arrow, if it has less than 20 seconds, in which case, cast Bestial Wrath with 5 seconds remaining on Resonating Arrow's cooldown so that the buffs can overlap with minimal cooldown wasted. If you have Sylvanas' bow, cast Wailing Arrow while Bestial Wrath is up. You ideally want to time it with Resonating Arrow as well, or save it if Resonating Arrow has less than 10 seconds left of its cooldown. Use Kill Command on cooldown, cast Cobra Shot when you have more than 50 focus, and if you want to optimize the cooldown reduction it gives to Kill Command, don't use it if Kill Command has less than 2.5 seconds remaining, since the 1 second offered and the 1.5 seconds global cooldown will make you waste its value if Kill Command doesn't have more than 2.5 seconds cooldown remaining. Cast Barb Shot here if Wild Spirits is up for extra Wild Spirits procs, and if you have the Bloodletting Conduit, you can even cast it when you have 1.2 charges total without having to wait for it to get close to 2 charges. Lastly, Tar Trap to activate your Soulforge legendary. This is more or less the priority list for your abilities in single target to give you an idea of what mindset you should be in if you want to optimally play the spec. In dungeons, you want to start with Barbed Shot, which will also send your pet into attack. Cast Tar Trap with Flare right after for the Soulforge legendary. if equipped. Multi-shot to activate your beast cleave. Pop Aspect of the Wild followed by your Covenant ability. Barb shot again on a different target if you want min-max damage. Multi-shot again for beast cleave. Bestial Wrath after. Use your newly gained barb shot charges on 2 more enemies. Multi-shot again for beast cleave and then continue with the normal AoE rotation. The AoE priority should ideally be the same as the single target one with an added multi-shot every 4 seconds so you can maintain ideally 100% uptime on your beast cleave. Other than this, managing the multiple targets will make a big difference in your damage output. Like mentioned before, spreading barb shot over multiple enemies will increase your output, as well as looking out to snipe low health targets with kill shot whenever possible. And if someone tells you that BM is face roll or a 2-button spec, well, you can prove them wrong now with a bunch more tips for a proper rotation. The rotation, as well as much of the information in this guide, has been theory crafted and tested by the top hunters in the Trueshard Lodge community. You can check their Discord for more details and tips and any questions you might have. Special shout out to Azor Tharian, who wrote the Icy Veins guides for all of the hunters. He goes more in depth about everything a Beast Mastery hunter can do, and yes, there is more, and you should check his guide with a link down in the description. And an even very more special thank you to Jay Easy, one of the top moderators in the Beast Mastery community in the Trueshard Lodge Discord, who helped us check and fact check that our guide and every information that we put out for you guys is accurate. So thank you, my friend, you rock. And our Patreons rock as well. Man, I'm nailing these segues today. Thank you, dear patrons, for supporting our content time and time again. It helps us make all of this a reality and helps us constantly improve everything that we do and offer you guys a various level of content and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And if you, dear viewer, like our stuff and you want to support us a little bit more, the link to our Patreon page is down below in the description. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.